Welcome to Better English.
Speak English with confidence.
Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome back to our 30-day shadowing and daily practice series here on Better English. I am Grace, and I am so happy and excited that you are joining us today for day 12 of our challenge. This series is specifically designed for A2 level and B1 level learners who want to feel more confident and natural when they speak English in real-life situations. Today, we have a very important and practical topic to cover: talking on the phone. For many people, talking on the phone in English is one of the most stressful things to do because you cannot see the other person's face, their mouth moving, or their body language. You have to rely completely on your ears, which can be very difficult at first. But don't worry, because we are here to help you practice until it feels completely natural and easy for you.
That is right, Grace. It can definitely be a challenge to talk on the phone when you can't see the person. But with the right phrases and a bit of practice, anyone can master it. In this video, you will master talking on the phone. Listen, repeat, and speak. We are going to use a method called shadowing. This means you will listen to us speak, and then you will repeat the sentences exactly as we say them. This helps your pronunciation, your natural speed, and your overall confidence. My job today is to lead you through these exercises. I will ask Grace questions about how to handle different phone situations, and then I will give you a specific phrase to practice. I will say the phrase twice so you have plenty of time to repeat it clearly.
I love that plan, David. We have to remember that daily English is all about being practical and useful. We have carefully chosen 30 very common and useful phrases that you can use at your job, with your friends, or even when you need to make a simple appointment at the doctor or the hair salon. We are going to start the lesson with the very basics, like how to answer the phone properly and how to say who you are so the other person isn't confused. Then, as we move through the lesson, we will practice more difficult things, like what to do if the connection is bad, or if you need to leave a long message for someone. It is going to be a very full and helpful lesson, so please make sure you are in a quiet place where you can speak out loud. Remember, speaking the words out loud is the most important part of this shadowing practice.
Exactly, Grace. If you want to improve your speaking, you must use your voice. Don't be shy. We are practicing together in this safe space. By the end of this 20-minute lesson, you will feel much more comfortable picking up the phone when it rings. We have a lot of ground to cover, from the first hello to the final goodbye. We will take it slow, keep the language very simple, and make sure every phrase is something you can use today. Every time we practice a phrase, I want you to try to match my melody and my tone. This is how you really improve your shadowing skills.
That is a great point to remember, David. Even if you only have a few minutes a day to practice, being consistent is the real key to making progress in your English journey. In today's video, we will go through many different scenarios to make sure you are prepared. We will imagine we are calling a friend for a chat, calling a doctor's office for an appointment, and even calling a professional business for information. We will give you the exact words you need so you never have to feel nervous or scared when your phone starts ringing in your pocket. I am ready to get started if you are. Let's get right into our first set of phrases for answering the phone and identifying ourselves to the person on the other end.
I am certainly ready, Grace. It is time to dive in. Remember, even if you feel a little nervous at first, just keep following our lead. The more you repeat these words, the easier they will become. Let's start with our first section and look at those essential greetings that help you start every phone conversation with confidence.
In this first part of our lesson, we are going to look at exactly how to pick up the phone when it rings. It sounds very simple, but the way you answer can change a lot depending on who is calling you. If a close friend calls, you can be very informal and relaxed. But if it is a phone number you do not recognize, or if you are sitting at your desk at work, you should be a bit more professional and clear. David, what is the most common and polite way to answer the phone when we want to keep things simple but friendly for the caller?
That is a great question. For our very first phrase, we will use the most common one in the world. It is simple, but it works every time. Listen carefully. Hello. Now, please repeat it after me. Hello, that was excellent. You can use this for any phone call, whether it is a friend or a stranger. It is the perfect way to begin.
Exactly. Saying hello is perfect for almost any situation you can imagine. But sometimes, especially when you are in a business setting or a formal office, people like to know exactly who they are talking to as soon as they pick up. It saves a lot of time and makes you sound very professional and organized. If I am working at an office and the phone rings, I might say, "Hello, this is Grace speaking." This lets the caller know immediately that they have reached the right person and the right department. David, can you give our listeners a good phrase for introducing themselves when they answer a professional business call?
I agree, Grace. Being professional starts with a clear greeting. Here is a great phrase for when you answer the phone at work. Hello, this is David speaking. Try saying it with me now. Hello, this is David speaking. Using your name right away makes you sound very confident and helpful to the person who is calling you.
That is a very useful phrase to have ready, David. Now let's think about the other side of the situation. What if you are the person who is making the call? You should always start by saying your name very clearly so the other person knows who is on the line right away. A very common mistake that English learners make is saying, "I am David," or "I am Grace." In English, when we are talking on the phone, we usually say, "This is," or "It is," followed by our name. David, how would you state your name clearly if you were calling someone for the first time today to introduce yourself?
If I were calling a business or a new person today, I would make sure to state my name and the reason I am calling very clearly. Here is a perfect shadowing phrase for you. This is David calling. Let's try that one more time. This is David calling. It is a very direct way to let the other person know exactly who they are talking to right from the start.
Perfect, that was very clear. This is David calling. It is simple, direct, and very easy for the other person to understand. Now let's think about another situation. Sometimes you might be returning a call that you missed earlier. Maybe you saw a missed call on your phone screen, and you are calling that person back to see what they needed. In this specific case, you want to explain exactly why you are calling right at the beginning of the conversation. You could say, "I am returning your call." This helps the other person remember that they tried to reach you earlier. David, show us how to say that properly for our shadowing practice today.
That is a very common situation, Grace. It happens to all of us. When you call someone back, you can use this phrase to explain yourself. I am returning your call. Now it is your turn to practice. I am returning your call. This is very helpful because it immediately explains the purpose of your phone call and helps the other person remember you.
Those are great examples, David. Now, once the basic introductions are finished, we usually have a very short moment of small talk, especially if we are talking to friends or colleagues that we know well. We usually ask a quick question like, "How are you?" or "How is it going today?" Even though it is just a phone call, using these polite and friendly phrases makes the whole conversation feel much warmer and more comfortable for everyone. David, what is a simple and nice way to ask how the person on the other end is doing today?
I think a simple "How are you?" is perfect for phone calls. It is short and very easy to say. Let's practice that one now. How are you? Try repeating it after me again. How are you? Even though it is a small question, it makes the person you are talking to feel much more comfortable and friendly.
I usually reply by saying, "I'm doing well, thanks for asking." It is a polite way to keep the conversation moving forward to the main topic. Now, let's imagine you are calling a business, and you want to be extremely polite because you know people are busy. You might want to start by asking the person if they actually have a moment to talk to you right now. Sometimes people answer the phone, but they are in the middle of something else. It is very kind to check first. You can ask, "Is now a good time to talk?" David, can you lead the shadowing practice for that very polite and respectful question?
I agree. Checking if the other person is busy is a very polite habit to have. Here is how you can ask that question. Is now a good time to talk? Let's practice that together now. Is now a good time to talk? This phrase is very useful for business calls because it shows that you are a very respectful and professional person.
That is such an important phrase to know, David. It shows that you really respect the other person's time and their schedule. Another great way to start a professional or business call is to say exactly who you work for or which company you are representing. For example, you might say, I'm calling from, and then say the name of your company. This gives the listener all the context they need immediately. David, what would that sound like if you were calling from a company called English Plus?
If I were calling from a company, I would include the company name to be very clear. Listen to this phrase. I'm calling from English Plus. Now, repeat it after me one more time. I'm calling from English Plus. You can replace the name of the company with your own company or office whenever you need to use this in real life.
We have really covered the basics of starting a phone call today. You now know how to say hello, how to say your name clearly, and how to start the whole conversation in a polite way. But what happens if the person you actually want to talk to isn't the one who picked up the phone? In the next part of our lesson, we are going to practice how to ask for a specific person. This is a very common thing that happens in offices or when you are calling a family home where many people live. David, are you ready to move on to part 2?
I am definitely ready, Grace. We have built a great foundation in this first part. Now that we know how to start the call, let's move on and learn how to navigate the conversation when we need to reach someone else. This is a very important skill for anyone working in an office or calling a large organization. Let's head into part 2.
Welcome back for part 2. In this section, we are going to practice how to ask to speak with a specific person. This is a very common situation you will find yourself in. Imagine you call a big company and a receptionist answers the phone. You need to get to the right person to solve your problem. The most polite and professional way to do this is to use the words may or could. For example, you could say, "May I speak to Mr. Smith, please?" David, can you give us a standard and very polite phrase for asking for a specific person?
You are right, Grace. Using may or could makes a huge difference in how you sound to others. Here is a very standard and polite way to ask for a specific person. May I speak to Mr. Smith, please? Let's try that one together. May I speak to Mr. Smith, please? Remember to keep your voice calm and polite when you are asking this question.
That sounds very professional and clear, David. Sometimes, you might not know the exact name of the person you need, but you do know their job title or which department they work in. For example, you might need to speak to the manager of the store or someone in the accounts department about a bill. In that case, you can be more general but still very polite. You can say, "Could I speak to the person in charge of marketing?" David, can you give us a phrase for asking to speak to the manager of a business?
That is a very practical situation. When you don't have a name, you can just use the job title instead. Listen to this phrase. Could I speak to the manager, please? Now, repeat it after me. Could I speak to the manager, please? This is a very useful sentence to remember if you ever have a problem with a service or a product.
Great. Now, what if the situation is more casual? What if you are calling a friend's house and a parent or a brother or sister answers the phone? You don't need to be so formal in that case. You can be a little more relaxed with your language. You might say something like, "Is Sarah there?" Or, "Is Sarah home right now?" It is still a polite way to ask, but it fits a casual and friendly situation much better. David, show us the informal way to ask if a friend is available to talk.
I love the informal approach for friends. It makes the conversation feel very natural. Let's practice this one. Is Sarah there? Try saying it with me now. Is Sarah there? Even though it is informal, using a friendly tone of voice is still very important when you are talking to a friend's family member.
Once you finally have the right person on the line, or perhaps while you are waiting for them to pick up, you might need to explain the reason for your call. This is very helpful because it tells the other person what you need from them right away. A very common way to start this explanation is by saying, "I'm calling about," and then adding your specific topic at the end. For example, you could say, "I'm calling about the team meeting tomorrow." David, can you help our listeners practice that very useful phrase?
This phrase is like a headline for your conversation. It tells the listener exactly what to expect. Let's practice it. I'm calling about the meeting tomorrow. Now, please repeat it after me. I'm calling about the meeting tomorrow. You can use this I'm calling about structure for almost any topic you need to discuss.
Exactly. Another way to say almost the same thing is to say, I'm calling to, followed by a specific verb. This is very direct and clear. For example, you might say, I'm calling to ask for some information, or I'm calling to confirm my appointment for next week. This is a phrase you will use very often when you are calling a doctor, a dentist, or a repair shop. David, let's practice the specific phrase for confirming an appointment.
Confirming appointments is something we all have to do eventually. This phrase will make it very easy for you. I'm calling to confirm my appointment. Try repeating that with me now. I'm calling to confirm my appointment. It is clear, simple, and it gets straight to the point, which busy offices really appreciate.
That is a phrase you will definitely use many times in your daily life. Now, sometimes you might just be calling someone to leave a very quick message because you know they're busy and you don't want to take up too much of their time. You can say, I just wanted to check in. This is a very friendly and nice way to let someone know you are thinking of them or that you just want a quick update on a project. David, how do we say that properly for a friend or a close colleague at work?
This is a great phrase for maintaining your relationships with people you care about. Listen closely, I just wanted to check in. Now it is your turn to repeat it. I just wanted to check in. It is a very low-pressure way to start a conversation with a friend or a teammate just to see how they are doing.
We are doing such a great job so far. We have already learned how to answer, how to ask for people, and how to state our purpose for calling. But as we all know, technology and phone lines are not always perfect. Sometimes the line is bad, there is noise, or we simply cannot hear the other person clearly. In the next part of our lesson, we are going to practice exactly what to say when things go wrong during a phone call. David, let's get ready for our troubleshooting and clarification section.
I am ready, Grace. Troubleshooting can be a bit scary, but having the right phrases ready will help everyone stay calm. Let's look at how to handle those difficult moments when the technology or the connection isn't working the way it should. Follow me into part 3, everyone.
This is part 3, and we are focusing on problems and asking for clarification. This is often the part that makes English learners the most nervous. If you don't understand something the other person said, please do not panic. It is perfectly okay and very common to ask the other person to repeat themselves. Even native speakers have to do this all the time. The simplest and best way to do this is to say, I'm sorry, could you say that again? David, please lead our listeners through this very important and helpful phrase.
That is so true, Grace. There is no reason to be embarrassed about asking for help. This phrase is your best friend when you are learning English. I'm sorry, could you say that again? Let's practice this important phrase now. I'm sorry, could you say that again? It is a very polite way to ask for a second chance to understand.
That is a perfect phrase to keep in your memory. You should never feel bad about using it. Another very common problem is when the person on the other end is speaking much too fast for you to follow. If you are a B1 learner, you might know the words, but the speed makes it difficult to process everything. You can politely ask them to slow down. You can say, could you speak a little slower, please? David, show them how to ask for a slower pace in a polite way.
This is another lifesaver for English learners. Most people are happy to slow down if you just ask them nicely. Listen to this sentence. Could you speak a little slower, please? Now, repeat it after me. Could you speak a little slower, please? This helps you take control of the conversation and make sure you don't miss anything.
Thank you, David. Sometimes the problem isn't the person you are talking to, but the phone signal itself. If you are in a building or a place with a very bad signal, the person's voice might cut in and out, so you only hear half of the words. In this situation, you can say, the connection is very bad right now. This lets the other person know why you are struggling to hear them. David, let's practice that phrase for a poor connection.
Bad signals are so frustrating, but we have to talk about them. Here is the phrase you need. The connection is very bad. Let's try that together now. The connection is very bad. Using this phrase quickly explains to the other person why you might be asking them to repeat themselves so many times.
If the connection is really terrible, you might lose the call entirely, and the phone will just go silent. If that happens and you decide to call them back immediately, you can explain what happened by using a special phrasal verb. You can say, "We got cut off." It's a very common expression we use specifically for phone calls that end unexpectedly. David, can you give us the shadowing practice for when a call ends suddenly?
This phrasal verb is very common in English. It describes exactly what happens when a call ends by mistake. We got cut off. Now it is your turn to repeat it. We got cut off. Using this when you call someone back shows that you have a very good understanding of natural English phone vocabulary.
Another big challenge on the phone is spelling. Names, addresses, and email addresses are very hard to hear correctly through a speaker. If you didn't catch exactly how to spell something, you should always ask them to spell it out for you. You can say, "Could you spell that for me, please?" This is very important for making sure you have the right information written down. David, help us practice asking someone to spell a word.
Spelling is tricky even for native speakers on the phone. This phrase will help you get the details right every time. Could you spell that for me, please? Let's practice that together. Could you spell that for me, please? Don't be afraid to use this for names, street addresses, or even email addresses to be safe.
And once they have spelled it, you should always repeat the information back to them to make sure you heard it correctly. This is a great way to avoid mistakes. You can start by saying, "Let me check if I got that right." This shows the other person that you are being very careful with the details. David, let's practice that introductory phrase for double-checking the information you just wrote down.
This is a great technique for being accurate. It shows the other person that you are listening carefully. Here is the phrase. Let me check if I got that right. Try repeating it after me now. Let me check if I got that right. Once you say this, you can repeat the information back to them to make sure it is correct.
Sometimes there is just way too much noise in the background where you are standing. Maybe you are at a busy train station, a loud cafe, or walking on a windy street. You can explain this by saying, "I'm sorry, it's very noisy here. Can you still hear me?" This explains all the loud background sounds the other person is hearing on their end. David, give us that phrase for a noisy and loud environment.
Sometimes the world is just too loud for a phone call. Here is how you can explain that situation. I'm sorry, it's very noisy here. Repeat it with me one more time. I'm sorry, it's very noisy here. This helps the other person understand why there might be some strange sounds in the background while you are talking.
Great job, everyone. Remember that dealing with these small problems is a normal part of learning a new language. If you can handle these little issues with confidence, your overall speaking skills will grow so much faster. Now, we have one more major area to cover before we finish today: taking messages and putting people on hold. This is a very common part of working in an office. David, let's move into our final set of core phrases for today.
I am ready, Grace. We are moving into the final stages of a typical phone call. Taking messages and holding are skills that will make you look very professional in any English-speaking environment. Let's jump into part 4 and learn how to manage these situations like a pro.
In part 4, we are talking about taking messages and putting callers on hold. Sometimes you might answer the phone for a colleague, or perhaps you need to go and find some information while the caller waits on the line. If you need a moment to look something up, you must ask the caller to wait so they don't think you hung up. A polite way to do this is to say, "Could you hold for a moment, please?" David, let's practice putting someone on hold politely.
Putting someone on hold is a very common task, especially in a business setting. Here is a very polite way to ask. Could you hold for a moment, please? Let's practice that together now. Could you hold for a moment, please? Using the word please at the end makes it sound much more like a polite request than an order.
When you finally come back to the phone after the person has been waiting for you, it is very important to thank them for their time. You can simply say, "Thank you for holding." It is very polite, it sounds professional, and it shows you appreciate their patience. David, show us how to thank a caller properly for their patience after they have been waiting on the line.
This is a small phrase that makes a big difference in how people feel. Listen to this one. Thank you for holding. Now, please repeat it after me. Thank you for holding. It is a very kind way to acknowledge that the other person had to wait for you and that you appreciate their time.
Now let's think about a different situation. What if the person the caller wants to talk to is not in the office or is busy in a meeting? You can offer to take a written message for them. You can ask the caller, would you like to leave a message? This is the standard and most helpful way to assist someone who couldn't reach their person. David, lead the shadowing practice for offering to take a message.
Offering to take a message is a very helpful thing to do when someone is unavailable. Let's practice this question. Would you like to leave a message? Try saying it with me now. Would you like to leave a message? This is the best way to help a caller even when you cannot give them the person they wanted to talk to.
If you are the person who is making the call and the person you need isn't there, you can ask to leave a message from your side as well. You don't have to wait for them to offer. You can say, can I leave a message for him? Or can I leave a message for her? Depending on who you are calling. David, let's practice the version for asking to leave a message for someone else.
If you are the caller, don't be afraid to ask to leave a message yourself. Here is how you can do it. Can I leave a message for her? Let's practice that one. Can I leave a message for her? This ensures that the person you are calling knows that you tried to reach them and that you have something to say.
It is also very important to tell them when you would like them to call you back, or if you would prefer the other person to call you when they are free. You can say, could you ask him to call me back? If you do this, make sure you leave your phone number clearly if you think they don't have it already. David, let's practice that request for a return call.
Asking for a callback is a very direct way to make sure the conversation continues later. Listen to this phrase, could you ask him to call me back? Now repeat it after me, could you ask him to call me back? It is a very clear instruction that helps the person taking the message know exactly what to do next.
Sometimes, you just need to have a general idea of when the person will be back at their desk or available again. You can ask a simple question like, when do you expect her back in the office? This helps you decide if you should wait and call again later or just send an email instead. David, let's practice asking about when someone is expected to return.
Knowing when someone will be back helps you plan your next move. Here is how you can ask, when do you expect her back? Let's try that together now. When do you expect her back? This is a very useful phrase for avoiding multiple phone calls that don't go anywhere.
You have all done such an absolutely amazing job today. We have gone through so many different and challenging situations. On the phone, we practiced everything from answering the phone to handling bad connections and taking professional messages. You are almost at the very end of our Day 12 lesson. In our final part, we will look at how to end the call politely and wrap up everything we learned today. David, let's finish this lesson strong.
I am ready for the finish line, Grace. We have covered so much helpful material today. Ending the call is the final piece of the puzzle. Let's learn how to finish our conversations in a way that makes everyone feel good. Onward to Part 5, our final section for Day 12.
We have finally made it to the last part of our lesson today. Ending a phone call politely is just as important as starting one, because you want to leave a very good final impression on the other person. Usually, we start to end the conversation by saying something like, "It was really nice talking to you today." This is a friendly signal that the conversation is coming to a finish. David, can you give us that warm and friendly closing phrase?
That is a wonderful way to end any call, whether it is personal or professional. Let's practice this friendly phrase. It was nice talking to you. Now, repeat it after me one more time. It was nice talking to you. It leaves the other person with a very positive feeling about the conversation you just had.
Another very common and polite way to end a business or professional call is to thank the person for all their help or for the information they gave you. You can simply say, "Thank you very much for your help," or "Thanks for all the information." It is a very nice way to finish the call on a positive note. David, show us how to say thank you properly at the very end of a call.
Saying thank you is always a good idea in English. It shows that you are a polite and appreciative person. Let's practice this closing phrase. Thank you for your help. Try saying it with me now. Thank you for your help. It is the perfect way to finish a call where you received information or solved a problem.
That is it! You have now officially practiced 30 essential and useful phrases for talking on the phone in English. Please remember that shadowing is a skill that takes time to build. The more often you repeat these phrases, the more they will stay in your long-term memory. If you feel like you still need a bit more practice, you can always watch this video again tomorrow and repeat the exercises. We are both so incredibly proud of you for completing day 12 of our challenge.
I couldn't agree more, Grace. I am so impressed with everyone who stayed with us until the very end. Talking on the phone is a big step in your English journey, and you should be very proud of yourself for practicing today. Each day you show up, you are getting one step closer to your goal of being a fluent English speaker.
Yes, please do that. We truly love seeing all of your progress and hearing about your journey. If you finished the whole 20-minute lesson today, please go down and type "I did it" in the comments section below. It really helps us know that you are working hard and staying consistent with your English learning goals every single day. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel Better English so you never miss a single day of our 30-day challenge. Your support is what helps us keep creating these lessons for you.
That is a great reminder, Grace. We love reading your comments and hearing how these lessons are helping you. Tomorrow is going to be another very exciting day in our challenge. For day 13, we are going to talk about money and prices. We will practice how to ask how much things cost and how to handle shopping situations in English. It is going to be very practical and fun.
I am really looking forward to that lesson, David. Learning how to talk about money, prices, and shopping is so useful for anyone who wants to travel or live in an English-speaking country. Thank you all so much for joining us today and for practicing your shadowing with us. Keep practicing, keep speaking out loud, and we will see you tomorrow for day 13 of our series. Goodbye, everyone!
I am looking forward to it as well. Thank you for practicing with us today on Better English. Remember, every time you speak out loud, you are making progress. Have a wonderful day of practicing, and we will see you right here tomorrow for day 13. Goodbye for now, everyone.
Your English journey does not end here. Watch more videos and keep practicing.